Yes. Yes, it is the FUD FOMO show. Was anyone expecting that? I'd forgotten about the reggae
That was
intro.
the Jamaican theme over there.
We're really playing around with our genres of music between that, and our live stream team on Monday had some experimentation in terms of the best intro music for this, and they settled on that. So it's cool to end a Friday off.
Listen, people push back on it, but I said hiring a house reggae band to just be here and jamming in the office, 5 days a week. I knew it was money well spent, and I stand by that.
I think you were right. I think you were right on that. Sorry for the pushback, guy.
That's all right. I know everyone. I know some people. It's a bear market and stuff, but every crypto channel should have its own in-house reggae band, and I think I just proved that. Welcome everyone.
Guy, what is FUD FOMO? People are watching the stream. It's like, what the hell happened? You have Coin Bureau is going live on the Friday on the main channel with this goddamn reggae music. What is FUD FOMO?
Exactly. Well, this is FUD FOMO, everyone. Welcome. This is a new live stream format that we thought we'd play around with. Long-time viewers of the Coin Bureau may be aware that we already do a live stream news show on Mondays. But, we thought it's a bit of 7 days is a long time to leave you guys without a glimpse of us live. So we thought we'd try something a little different for Fridays. This is going to be a lot less sort of structured, a bit more chilled, a bit more of a kind of meandering discussion, really, about some of the stuff that's been going on in crypto over the last week. So please do let us know in the comments whether you like this new Friday live stream or whether it's just interrupting you from getting out of work and going to the pub. But yeah, do keep us posted on what you think. I'm joined, of course, by Lewis. Hello, Lewis. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
You're in the jungly Coin Bureau quarters there.
It's a green screen, mate. It's a green screen setup.
Oh, it's a green screen. Oh, sorry. Yes.
It's actually a new technology. It's a green screen where if you put your hand close enough to it, it actually moves what the green screen is presenting. So it's really cool. New tech, nano green screen technology. Bro. Actually, AI. It's wild.
Again, money well spent. I knew it was worth it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we've also got Nick in his. It looks like an Airbnb there. But how are you doing, Nick?
That's a VIP pad, man. It's cool, man. I'm cool.
Okay. Enjoying your.
I like how they got your Nick crypto in the background. From the Airbnb host must have known that you were coming. So
they set it up exactly. I personalized it for me. It's a special service on Airbnb.
Perfect.
I like the slightly sleazy purple light as well. I'm here for that. That's brilliant. That's Friday vibes. Not red, not green, just sleaze. Brilliant. Okay, so folks, today we're talking about a few things. We're going to be talking about some interesting stuff happening with Ethereum at the moment. We're also going to be talking about privacy and the Perpdex metas. Both of which, as you've probably noticed, there's been quite a lot going on there as well. But also, we're kind of looking ahead because today, believe it or not, is a pretty consequential day for not just the crypto market, but markets in general, because we have two big announcements, big things coming up, if you like, a little later on today. So we thought we'd dive into that. Nick, can you talk us through the first of these things that we need to be aware of that's happening a little later on? So
literally within T-minus 26 minutes, we've got the first NFP employment numbers for the year 2026. So these are coming in. 73,000 is the expected number. So that's a number to watch, guys. Above or below expectations, it will determine how the markets move, because this will, of course, inform the Fed rate decision in terms of January. Now, in terms of expectations for the Fed, the interest rate expectations for January, it's about 80% chance of no cut, but that could very quickly change if the numbers are to the downside and it looks as if the labor market risks are there are labor market risks. And if you recall back to the FOMC minutes from last week, it was revealed again that the Fed is now more worried about the downside risks to employment than inflation. So this will be a big determinant factor in terms of how markets react and how the Fed thinking goes into the next FOMC. So that's coming out now, and I'd say in 25 minutes.
Okay, so non-farm payrolls, and as you said, this is kind of a bit of a focus for the Fed now. They're concentrating more on they're more worried about employment than they are about inflation.
Yeah, exactly. I think that inflation is still above target, right? But I think that now they're worried about employment. And I think also to the effect that the inflation itself hasn't been that badly impacted by tariffs, which many people had worried about earlier last year. So I think that, and then of course there's Trump that's hot on their heels. So they're worried about any sort of hiccups in the jobs market.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that time? It's only a few years ago now when we when we would do crypto streams or whatever, or we do crypto videos, and we never seemed to worry about things like non-farm payrolls or Fed interest rate decisions. And then a while back, everything changed, and now we all have to watch data like this like a hawk. It was much more fun when we could just watch.
It's crazy.
Coins popping off, right?
The concept of crypto bros sitting over there watching listening to the every single word of the old fiat boomer as he determined the future of their magic internet money. How far we've come. Satoshi, wow, what does he think of this? All these guys standing around waiting to see what, and passing the language, the Fed speak of Jerome and co.
Or what tie Jerome Powell is wearing, what color. And then that will determine whether we're going up or down.
Before the meeting itself, like people are actually and now you've got prediction markets that are actually like drilling into the details, not just of the actual interest rate decision, but in terms of words that are mentioned in these actual FOMC presentations and briefings.
Yeah. They bet on pretty much everything. I even saw a new thing that was coming out where it's like you can create your own prediction markets, but I don't know how that would even work because, that seems like you could just create your own bets on things that what the outcome's going to be.
I put a prediction on Lewis taking his hat off and during the stream and insider trade that Lewis.
I mean the big thing with these prediction markets is just that they're so obviously being used for insider trading, aren't they? I mean, we've got these examples of sort of massive bets from newly created wallets being placed right before something consequential happens. That only.
How about last year? The example of the green dildos on the basketball court, and the guy was caught. That's how far we've come, and that's the future of prediction markets. People rigging. But it's not only to not lose track of the conversation. The other big event that's happening today, it's obviously there's NFP numbers, which are now coming in like 22 minutes. But there's another big event today as well, right?
There is, yeah. So you mentioned tariffs a little earlier, Nick, and obviously they were the kind of big economic story of last year, and had a huge effect on the crypto market as much as anything else. But those tariffs were challenged in the Supreme Court because there was an argument made that Trump wasn't actually able to act kind of unilaterally like he did. So the tariffs were challenged, and the Supreme Court is actually delivering its ruling on that challenge, on that particular case, later today as well. In fact, I think within the next hour or so. And what this means is that there is a possibility that they will rule that the tariffs were not lawful or not legal, and therefore need to be rolled back, which could, and I do underline this is one of several possible scenarios, but it could mean that the administration has to pay the tariffs back to all those American companies that have paid them, which is of course hundreds of billions of dollars already. So there is quite a lot on the line here.
Should mention though that there is more than one outcome or two outcomes. It's not binary. There's a few other options here. One is that the Supreme Court rules that on the more optimistic side, they say, okay, well, all future tariffs. So essentially what's already been collected is not going to be refunded. So the president can't implement any more new future tariffs, and they won't be applicable going forward. So retroactively, they won't go retroactively. And then also there's another option where they say certain tariffs could be still applied, assuming they fall under the wrapper of national security threats. And that's the ones that relate to the fentanyl. That's potentially Mexico and Canada. So that's another potential option. So there's at least 4 different rulings that could happen here, and 3 that are kind of like medium ground. Well, 2 that are medium ground, and 1 that is basically complete refunding of all the tariffs, striking it all down, and then the other 2 in the middle. So it will be really interesting to see what happens. I think the main thing, people, in terms of the markets, if it is a complete strike down and the government will have to refund those tariffs, that's going to be a massive risk on move for the markets, because it's going to be fiscal stimulus. But then, potentially rates could shoot up because of concerns around the fiscal position of the US government, because now they've lost those tariff revenues. So it will definitely be something to watch. I think that's within at least maybe an hour it will come out.
Yeah. And in fact, if the court does strike them down, then the White House is expected to immediately try and reimpose them, but just using different legal authorities, apparently, as well. So it might just be that it's a case of, okay, you say you can't do them. Well, we're doing them under this particular section or whatever it is, which would in itself probably trigger another legal challenge. So although I guess there's a sense that we might get some kind of closure on this, actually what it likely means is it could just be a whole load more deliberation, which I guess probably amounts to a lot more uncertainty in the long run.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was thinking. I for some reason, I just don't think they're going to come to a hard decision on it today. And it did say like today's like decision day for handing down opinions. Does that mean that it's literally like they have to come up with a legit decision right now, like one of those 4 decisions? Or is it like today is the day that's the final decision day on what could possibly happen in like in the future? Like they need to come up with their mind of those 4 different things, and then be like, these are the options, and we'll figure out like what we actually decide later down the road.
Yeah,
there always seems to be something like that ends up happening, like it just from in the government, from what I've seen.
Yeah,
like it would be really shocking to me if today, if all of a sudden someone like they just came out, oh hey, yeah, you have to repay all of these, like, and like that was the decision they come out with it like today. I don't know. It would. I don't think they're going to come out with that ever, to be honest. It's just like it's that's like the most extreme case, right? And I think like typically it's more in the middle of like where things end up. But I don't know. That's just me when it comes to these tariffs. I feel like it's been such a long time since we started talking about tariffs. It's like a lot of people are like, all right, well, like even if there is a decision on it, it's like how many people are gonna be so emotionally caught up in it to make huge decisions based off of it at this point now. Also, like if this happened, like originally, then it's like, oh man, like we're all caught up in it, right? But now it's like, dude, it's been like a long time. So
yeah,
it's like, okay, oh yeah, okay, whatever.
I guess there's a sense as well that a lot of people are sort of like, we've moved past tariffs. Like tariffs, what tariffs? Like, what's happening with Venezuela? What's happening with Greenland? Sort of like,
yeah.
Are you guys still talking about tariffs? Why are we even talking about it?
That's next week's problem, guys. But it's time for a quick. We'll come back with the next topic in a bit. But I think it's time for a shout out for our brand sponsor, right?
It is indeed.
Hey, I want to give a big shout out to the sponsors of this live stream, Binance. Now, if you need an exchange that has loads of trading pairs, loads of liquidity, and a fantastic interface to boot, then Binance is the place to go. And if you sign up using this QR code, you're not only eligible for up to $600 in sign-up bonuses, but you'll also get a 20% trading fee discount for life. Yes, that is for life. So a big thanks to Binance for sponsoring this stream. And speaking of which, let's get back to it.
There we are.
I was reading the comments, and one of them said like, "Work? Aren't we all in crypto?" and it's like, well, yeah, we are, but we're probably going to have to get jobs pretty soon. I mean, although now I heard McDonald's stopped taking in people that were crypto bros. So we might really be screwed at that point.
I think if McDonald's haven't put a hard cap on crypto bros by now, they really have not been paying attention. So yeah, I think we may all have to try Burger King instead. Okay, let's move on. We were talking about tariffs, so we're going to see what happens there. But yeah, I kind of think it's probably going to be quite messy. But I wanted to also talk briefly about some good news, crypto related, and actually some good news for ETH. And I say this as an ETH holder, so make of that what you will. But actually, like things are kind of looking up for Ethereum at the moment. The Fusaka upgrade went ahead last year. We've got Glamsterdam, the wonderfully named Glamsterdam, coming up soon as well. But there's also the recent news that Ethereum's validator exit queue has dropped to 0. Now, I just want to share my screen with you guys here. There we are, validator queue.
So no validators are leaving, essentially. Is that what that means?
Yes. So let me bring this up. So yeah, basically, but there's still a long queue of people wanting to enter, people wanting to stake their ETH, but the ETH unstaking has basically come to an end. Now, this was a kind of big hangover. Something that was hanging over ETH, especially when these ETFs launched, that the validator exit queue was looking pretty long, and a lot of people were
is this like when people, originally in I think 2022 started staking all over their ETH, and they had to stake it for a certain number of years, and then like from that point, and then like as they continued to stake it in 2023 and stuff, there was a certain time that you had to stake it. And now
I think it's different. I think that a validator exits, almost net proof of stake networks have an exit queue of some description, right? Such that you have an orderly change in the validator set and it's not drops immediately. So there's generally queue it up and then there's an unstaking period. But I think in the case of ETH, when you have a spike in the validator exit queue, it slows down the unstaking ability. So I think in this case, the fact that it's dropped towards 0 means that it's good news to the extent that not many people who are staking are deciding to unstake. And in fact, it's not just the fact that less people are choosing to unstake, but also the fact that there's more staking taking place, right? Because we've got upcoming ETFs there. Bitmine has just been staking all of its ETH regularly, and a few other DATs as well. So this is great news for the Ethereum network.
Yeah. There was also a bit of a change to the way staking worked as well. This is these are ETF inflows for ETH, and I want to talk about these in a minute. But there was also a change to the dynamics, if you like, of ETH staking as well, because it wasn't. I forget which recent upgrade it was, whether it was Fusaka or the one we had before that, but basically changed. So it used to be that the maximum you could stake was 32 ETH. And that maximum was massively increased. So, so I think there was a lot of withdrawing in order to kind of restake with a higher maximum.
It's Den Kuhn, right? I think that was the one in March.
Yes.
Den Kuhn,
yes, yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. It was Den Kuhn. So the dynamics around ETH staking have changed a lot. So obviously a lot of people, I think, who were, having to run multiple validators because, they had an absolute ton of ETH that they got very cheap. We're probably consolidating those validators. But just looking back at that earlier screen, active validators, 973,646. I mean, that is the sort of decentralization that most others would kill for. But also having a look at these ETF flows, I think, as well, because there's something interesting here. If you look at the top there are only 2 ETH staking ETFs currently live, both of which are operated run by Grayscale. But if you see here, all of these other ones, including, of course, BlackRock's, are pending on staking as well. So eventually, these, if staking is approved for these ETFs, which I imagine is something of a formality, the amount of staked ETH is going to climb even more, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's if many of these ETFs are going to try to be staking ETFs. I think that they're allowed to. I guess the question is it appealing enough, and that the mechanics of how that staking reward is given back to the users if there's still appeal for people filing for staking ETFs. But as much ETH that is staked, and then that obviously is beneficial for the network. It secures the network. It secures the network in the short term, but I guess the other angle some people could take is like, does this mean, because the proof of stake network is more susceptible to control via resources in terms of stake control. So if BlackRock has most of the power of the stake and Bitmine, it's that is a question. But for the short term, it's bullish.
I wonder if the rewards get back to the person to the retail person that is investing into the ETF, like a dividend.
Yeah, there should be. But I think that there's either that or there's a prorate. It's what's the term when it compounds? It compounds the interest, or the stake and rewards themselves compounds in the price, so they don't pay it out. It just increases in the actual value of the ETF. So I forgot the exact term for that, but that could be another option. Instead of paying out dividends, it's basically the value of your ETH that you hold per share goes up.
I wonder. We'll figure that out once it becomes live. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think it's big news though, because and I think this thing from the block makes it kind of clear. This is big institutional news as well, because institutions obviously they love yield. Yield is a really important consideration for them. And Nick, you mentioned Bitmine as well. Obviously, the DATs and Bitmine, ETHZilla and others are staking theirs too. So, but it really points, I think, towards an increase in just institutional kind of validation for Ethereum, if you like. And I mean, that kind of seems to be the way it's going now.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, I think that it's the next one down the stack from Bitcoin. If institutions are starting to move into alts, that's the first place to watch the rotation from Bitcoin to ETH, and therefore the ETH BTC ratio.
Yeah, and institutions don't look for a 5,000% yield like the crypto degens do. They'll be okay with like 4% or 5%. So.
You mean, Lewis, the institutions aren't going to be sitting up late into the night farming DeFi yield farming, going across various protocols to get.
I don't think they're going to be doing that. So Ethereum is the logical choice. Yeah.
I like the idea of someone paying like a Gen Z intern at BlackRock just to sit up late into the night, just be like, just go hunt yield. Here's 5 billion USDC. Just go and farm that.
And it's gone.
Then BlackRock suddenly crumbles. Okay, so I mean, good news for Ethereum, and I think it does kind of also, I think, point in the direction of travel for the crypto space as a whole. Yeah. I think, because
do you know when those are supposed to come out, by the way, like the staking for the different ETFs?
I can't remember when they're going to be approved. I think I can't. There was some sort of delay on why exactly it was happening. I mean, it may be tied up with the innovation exemption, which the SEC is putting into place. I mean, supposedly later this month. Which, given that we're almost 10 days into the month, it must be fairly close. Which is obviously going to make all crypto stuff kind of legal in the US for a period of time. So it may just be a case of waiting for that innovation exemption to go live, and then we'll see all those spot ETH ETFs tick over into staking, which, like I say, should mean that validator queue, for entry gets a lot longer.
Yep.
Okay. That is the latest happening with Ethereum. Thanks for hearing me out on that one, guys. So we should also talk about two of the hottest sectors in the market at the moment, and those are privacy and perp dexes. Now, I want to start with privacy because we've had some interesting news recently. Zcash, obviously one of the massive performers of last year. I can't remember whether either of you guys have ZEC in your portfolios, but if you do, it's kind of been an interesting week, right? An interesting few days.
Yeah, I do hold a bit of ZEC. It has been a crazy few days. I think that it was beginning, start of the year off with a nice little pump. Everyone was getting on board the privacy meta again. And then we got this shock news at the beginning of this week that the entire team at Electric Coin Company, which is the developer behind Zcash, had resigned due to basically irreconcilable differences with relation to the board members over strategic matters, etc. And obviously this led to a complete collapse in the price of ZEC. But it was later it turned out that it wasn't as bad as many had thought, because the team said they'll still continue working on Zcash under a new corporate structure after the disagreement with Bootstrap, which is one of the companies behind them as well. So it was quite a volatile week, and you can see that in the price of ZEC itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you hang on, let me add this to the screen. So, nearly 20% in 4 hours. But I mean, it does seem
back up right now. It just jumped up another 18%.
I'm sorry, I had to laugh. The trending coin at the top there on your screen.
Which one's that?
You see the trending coin,
man.
guy? You see the top trending on your Twitch, on your screen.
Wonder
guy.
what's happening.
What's happening?
Oh, which one is it? Oh, I can't hang on.
Trending.
Let me go back to.
Go to your screen. It's trending.
I'm sharing.
I don't know if we're allowed. Are we allowed to see this?
Guys, can we go long testicle? That's a sign.
Okay, well, that's the danger of sharing a Twitter screen, I guess.
Guy, you know that the suggested and what's happening on Twitter is personalized, so it's done according to your browsing history.
Listen, I've been doing a lot of research into Testicle, and I can tell you there's some interesting stuff going on there. That's all I'm going to say. Yes. So bearish ZEC, bullish Testicle. Is that the takeaway?
I think that's the conclusion from this video.
That's the only conclusion that we can draw, I think. But yeah, it wasn't all that nice for ZEC. Although, as you were saying, Lewis, it has kind of recovered, right?
18% in the last few hours. So yeah, it's not too bad. I don't know I have no idea what's going to happen with it at this point. I was short, and then I was long, then I was short, and now I'm just like, I don't know what's going on. So we'll see. But is it as bad as what people say, or is it like, a nothing burger? It's probably not a nothing burger, but like, who knows? I've heard a lot of rumors.
It's a pretty involved story, I think. We've actually got a newsletter piece on this coming out, I think, on Sunday, because it's quite, there's quite a few moving parts to this story. But yeah, it is interesting that, when I saw that collapse, I was that 20% collapse. I was like, oh, this is not good. But yeah, to see it recover like that suggests that, maybe people don't really care about the dev team, and maybe the dev team, leaving isn't necessarily all that important.
Well, for the sake of Nick's bags, let's hope so.
Yeah. Pray for Nick's bags.
Pray for my bags, guys. Another meta that you mentioned, of course, that seems to have picked up a lot is the start of this year, and that's because of a new perp. Well, it's the PerpDex meta, and that's because of a new PerpDex that hit the scene that everyone seems to be making a fuss about, and this is Lighter. Now, Lighter, or by the aptly named ticker LIT, pretty cool ticker there. It's come out, and it's actually done quite well out of the gates. It's got, I think it's a pretty strong competitor for Hyperliquid. Now, we've seen a lot of competitors come to, for Hyperliquid over the past few months, Aster, Edgex, a few others. But Lighter seems to potentially can give it a run for its money in terms of technology. It's an ETH layer 2. It uses ZK technology. It ran a pretty lengthy points campaign, which I think has rewarded quite a few people who were involved early. And we actually did a complete deep dive into Lighter and a comparison with Hyperliquid in the Coin Bureau Telegram. So if you guys aren't following our Telegram, scan it right over there in the bottom left. But we broke down a comparison between Hyperliquid and Lighter. And with these alpha posts we do regularly, like once every 2 days, only in our Telegram. So definitely go and follow that.
Yeah. Have either of you guys traded on Lighter?
No, I have not. Lewis?
I've only traded on hype. I've only done hype.
Okay. I want to share this with you. This dashboard from DeFi Llama I thought was quite interesting. I mean, it really shows, doesn't it? Like, obviously, Hyperliquid is still kind of top of the tree. Aster is running it fairly close on a lot of metrics. Then you have Lighter and EdgeX. But really, it's mostly about those four in what is getting an increasingly sort of crowded field. But I wanted to draw your attention to a couple of other entries sort of further down the list. Now, I know
Sorry,
both
guys,
of these...
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Just very quickly, guys. We got the NFP out, and it's come in at 50K. So that's slightly lower than expected. So, that is potentially good from the perspective of more likely for Fed cuts. We'll have to see how things adapt and adjust over the span of the next few hours. But yeah, that's just broken.
Okay. So the NFP numbers are good. I'm seeing Bitcoin 90.5 at the moment.
Well, they're not good. They're worse than expected. So that's bad news is good news, right?
Oh yeah. Okay, so we're pleased about the bad news around people's jobs. Yeah. Okay. That's great news. Unless you're looking for a job.
Unless you can't find a job.
Yeah.
We are
well, let's see how crypto reacts to that then. But yeah, just going back to these perp dexes. If you look, so I'm scrolling down here, and it's only here at number 36 that I come to Phantom, and then a little lower down, even lower down at 49 is MetaMask. And the reason I think that's interesting is because obviously arguably the two most popular crypto wallets, certainly for retail users. With an honorable mention, I think, to Rabby wallet as well. But
oh my God, I love Rabby for Ethereum and Base. Rabby has been so good. I switched from MetaMask a while ago to Rabby, and I like it. And Jupiter just came out with it, not just, but Jupiter did come out with its own wallet now, because everyone uses Phantom for Solana, and then they attach it to the Jupiter DEX to do their trading, but now Jupiter has its own native wallet, so it's a little bit faster. You don't need to manually approve everything, and it's native, so it syncs better with the Jupiter exchange. So those are just two things that I sort of recently did: switch from MetaMask to Rabby, and switch from Phantom to Jupiter. And I've been enjoying the Jupe wallet and Rabby. They should, shout out if they want to sponsor us or something, but
Very good. Always got an eye for business, Lewis. That's great. I mean, I think one of the things that the fact that both Phantom and MetaMask are fairly low down on the Perps list, because I noticed that Phantom especially, and they both plug into Hyperliquid in the back end, if I'm not mistaken. But Phantom especially, I thought, had really kind of simplified the whole Perps interface, because the kind of classic Perps interface on, a lot of centralized exchanges isn't, I've found in the past, the most sort of intuitive thing. So it's not, the easiest thing, especially for beginners to get to grips with. And then Phantom comes along and kind of makes it a whole lot easier to do. But obviously, these are the kind of number one ways for, MetaMask and Phantom are two of the sort of most popular ways for kind of retail to interact with those respective chains, with Solana and Ethereum and its layer twos. And yet, those low volumes suggest that retail are not really trading Perps all that much, and Perps, depending on who you ask, is accounting for an enormous amount of actual just general volume in crypto at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, fair. But to be honest, if you're a complete noob retail and you're used to Robinhood and you're used to some of these easy onboarding with these sexes, using a DEX is still a pretty big step up in terms of UX, and especially if you have to bridge funds and all this kind of stuff. And I think still many people are complete newbies are still intimidated by the concept of full self-custody in these perp dexes. So it will take some time before they get fully on board.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of a good thing in a way, really, isn't it? Because perps are, as we know, not something to be taken lightly. So it's probably best that retail isn't going crazy on perps left, right, and center, right?
Yeah, no, indeed.
Yeah,
I
we need
mean,
more spot, please.
Yeah,
Like
more
less
spot.
people perp trading, more spot.
Yeah.
So
Believe
should we maybe take a look at some of the questions, guys, to finish this thing off with? Maybe some people have some questions in the comments and we can just answer them. That's another format, guys, we want to try and include in these Friday streams, by the way, is we wanted to try and give you guys more of an opportunity to ask us questions you had that we may not have been able to answer on the Monday live stream. We can discuss it now more in depth with you on a Friday. So that's why feel free to ask your questions in the comments. We can try and get to them.
Yeah. Nick, can you remind us of those unemployment non-farm payrolls again?
So the actual number was 50K and the expectations are 73K. So, you know, we still had growth, we still had non-farm payroll, so it was still job growth, but it was less than expected. And markets always are priced on expectations, right?
Yeah. Okay. Are you guys bullish or bearish this year on the whole space?
Lewis, go first. Lewis, go first. You catch that one.
Okay. So if you're talking like by the end of the year, I'm bullish, but it's actually more like down for down, flat, and then it goes back up to the point where I'm bullish, where it's going to end like a few percent higher than where we are now. But before that happens, I'm very bearish in most of the year. Yeah, most of the year I'm very bearish, but I think we'll end the year, at least for Bitcoin, bullish more than what we are now. Fingers crossed.
So you're saying basically buy and hold and just not look at the charts.
Buy and hold and
the rest
DCA.
of the tides and the rest of the 350 something days.
Yeah, I know typically people should not financial advice or whatever, but like statistically, if you buy something and you go all in, you have a better chance most of the time at outperforming dollar cost averaging, because most of the time markets do tend to go up and to the right. But if you go in all in right when, you know, things are starting to go down after, you know, say Bitcoin went from 15K to 120, you know, and then you start and then you go all in, then that's not good. So I think now is probably the best time where I could say like, hey, like it's probably a really good time to dollar cost average into Bitcoin, because there is a probability of it going down, and you want it to go down when you're dollar cost averaging, because that lowers your average buy price. And then when it eventually goes back up again, which I'm pretty sure it will, then you'll have a much better buy price and you'll make a lot more money. So I'm going to be dollar cost averaging. Like now is the point where I'm going to be dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin, and hopefully it keeps on going down and I get to keep on buying more and collecting more sats as it does.
Okay. Nick, what are your thoughts on this year? Are you bullish, bearish?
Slightly more I'm bearish on altcoins, bullish. I think Bitcoin, my view on the markets is Bitcoin still has the macro environment looks good to the extent that we're going to have liquidity that will go and flow into Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is going to go back above its all-time high again. I don't think too much more than above its all-time high, and then it will start retracing down again as we move into, you know, a bear market. I think alts have got a lot of headwinds for them for many factors. So as a result, I was thinking about structuring a portfolio now. It would be quite Bitcoin heavy, which is what it is. It is Bitcoin heavy, and look, I mean, yeah, I think alts just got too much competition, I think, and also it's the question of rotation right now is called into question through the structural dynamics of ETFs and everything. So I think Bitcoin, in terms of Lewis's point around towards the end of the year, whether Bitcoin will be up, it all depends on, you know, whether you think you're going to have a blow off top or if the one last year wasn't a blow off top. I think we still got room in the tank for Bitcoin to continue above its all-time high. Whether it tops out this year or that's next year will depend on where I think it's going to be in December. But I think if by June we haven't hit all-time highs again, then that's not necessarily bode well for the end of the year.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I think that the two things I'm kind of eyeing up are the innovation exemption, which I talked about earlier, because I think how a lot of altcoin projects react to that that's going to be really important, because I think this is probably going to be the opportunity for a lot of altcoins to kind of show what they're made of, and a lot of the projects behind them to be like, this is the value proposition. We weren't able to offer this beforehand because we weren't sure of the rules or whatever, and the regulatory environment was, unclear at best, hostile at worst, blah, blah, blah. So I think, if a lot of projects are able to take advantage of that, then that could make the case for altcoins and strengthen the sector as a whole. And of course, the other big one is the small matter of the midterm elections in November, which obviously still quite a long way away. But I do think, I do wonder whether, Trump and those around him will remember their debt to the crypto industry that funded them so lavishly, and is, I think, ramping up funding once again for Republicans, and it should be said, pro crypto lawmakers on the other side of the aisle. So, but yeah, I do wonder whether that might give us a pump. Human Being is asking, can you guys start over from the beginning? I just got on. I don't have time to rewind. You guys don't mind.
So we have a Jamaican themed song.
We can restart. That's the highlight. You just need to go to the intro to listen to the song, and that's all that matters, mate. Because the rest is kind of just garbage, to be honest. It's just three crypto bros talking nonsense, like you'll.
Exactly. Will Trump take Greenland? Oh God, I mean that's the next thing.
Next week's.
That's next week's problem, Helberg. We'll see. Interesting one from Cornelius. Will on-chain options become more widely adopted this year, especially by institutions? Options, perps, in my opinion. I mean, I can't say I can really see institutions going to degen. In terms of because they're obviously kind of, fiduciary duty and things like that probably prevents them from getting too baroque with what they can do. But I mean, it would be interesting, wouldn't it? Like, as we say, institutions are becoming more and more interested. It would be interesting to see what they, what aspects of crypto they, decide to engage with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think institutions are getting involved with perp dexes or perp options markets at all, because I think that there's just too much they got a fiduciary duty for their shareholders, their investors. There's risks. There's, for example, I know that many of the institutions didn't even want to touch centralized exchange options like the likes of Deribit, etc. And the only reason everyone was so excited for the BlackRock IBIT options is because we give them options they were settled on an exchange when you've got no counterparty risk, and it's all within their current structures. So I think institutions will be very wary of doing much of the on-chain option stuff. Although it'd be good to have an on-chain DEX of some description. I think that some do exist. It just never seen the same amount of uptake compared to from crypto native investors as perp dexes.
Mm. Yeah. One other one. Are we in a controlled bear market, or should we just expect less volatility as more 4-year cycles move forward? That's an interesting one.
I think we definitely expect less volatility. I mean, if we're talking Bitcoin specifically, I think it's because of the market structure has changed. ETFs has changed, that deeper liquidity, and naturally, as an asset class matures, it becomes way less volatile. I mean, that's not just a statement, that's a fact in terms of how Bitcoin's bull market drawdowns and bear market troughs compared to previous cycles have been. It's been decreasing every year. And there will be solid bids for Bitcoin. I think if we fall even below 80 to 70, I think by 70, in terms of this year, a low we could potentially see is at most is 70K. But even then,
do you think that's the lowest?
Yeah, that's, I think, deep value territory.
I think 50K is. I think that's where we're going to bottom out.
Well, let's go. We'll start a prediction market on this. We'll go and use the Lewis and Nick bet.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, the final request is a simple one. Nick, can you tie up your hair and look like Legolas? And I'd love to see Guy grow his curly hair and look like Frodo. My hair does actually go curly when I grow it out. Louise could be Aragon. We just need a dwarf and the company will be completed. There we are.
Like can you do your Gollum voice, Lewis?
Okay.
It's Louise now, apparently.
My precious.
Take the good hand.
Well, on that bombshell, I think we will leave it there for this week, folks. So, look, let us know what you thought of this. Did you enjoy it? Do you want to see us do more Friday live streams like this? Like I say, a little less formal, a little more of a kind of meandering discussion about all things crypto. Or has this already completely ruined your weekend and you never want to see our faces again? Let us know in the comments. We love to hear your feedback and we do take it on board. We will be back. All three of us will be back. Lewis will be back in the form with his TA on Monday. Nick and I will be back in the studio presenting the live news show as usual. And of course, lots of other content to come as well. So, Nick, Lewis, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for joining today.
Likewise, yeah. And then don't forget tariff news, guys. Next half an hour. So get those orders in place.
Yeah, it's all kicking off, folks. Weekends are interesting again. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a great weekend, and we will see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.